Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Highruler, and today's video is going to be talking about Concord. Now, at the start of this video, I'm going to pose you guys a question. And the question is, are you excited for Concord? Because we are 10 days out from the early access launch, 13 days out from the regular edition launch, and I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about this game on social media. It seems like once the betas kind of ended, there was no hype, right? There was no kind of, lingering excitement. There wasn't really anything there to kind of continue on for this game. And I think that's a worrying trend because when I look at a game like Suicide Squad, and Suicide Squad has done not the greatest, there was still an ample amount of excitement pre-launch for that game. People were excited to play it, people wanted to play it, and I think even then it still wasn't enough to sustain them through a pretty bad launch. I look at Concord, for example, and Concord has none of that. So if it has a bad launch, I think it's just DOA super quick. But I don't know if there's still going to be an influx of people that are going to buy this game because I just not seeing a lot of people talk about it. And I think that's very worrying if you're PlayStation and Firewalk. And when I try to parse through social media and I try to figure out what is going on here, there's a couple of different things that I think is, kind of happening with this game. The first of which is that it's just kind of been eclipsed by Marvel Rivals, right? And I've said it before, and it does feel like there's blood in the water in the hero shooter market because we look at some of the top industry games and it does feel like they are kind of old at this point, right? Overwatch 2 and Overwatch have been out since 2016. Valorant's been out for 4 years, so it's still kind of new. Siege has been out for 9 years at this point. Apex Legends has been out since, I think, pre-COVID, right? Like, is my memory still good there? So it does feel like a lot of these games, then you're looking at, Paladins, for example, is like a second tier one. So there is some movement to be had here, and we're seeing that with Concord, with Marvel Rivals, with Fragpong, with the Mountaintop game. Like, there is what it seems like blood in the water here to kind of really bleed players from these other experiences into your own. But I think you have to do something different. Now, with a couple of these games, they do have some unique kind of mechanics there, right? Obviously, there's the Mountaintop one where you play two bodies at the same time. And then obviously, Marvel Rivals is Marvel, right? And I think that speaks for itself. But I look at a game like Concord, which I'm looking at it and I understand the appeal of it, right? It's a slower TTK and, it's kind of a more methodical hero shooter than it is kind of like a, run around, chicken with your head cut off, and you're kind of, doing some crazy stuff. And I think there is an appeal to that, but the question is it enough, right? And with the response that I'm seeing, I don't know if it is because I just don't think it does enough to pull people away from their established games that they've been playing for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Now, the other complaint that I'm seeing a lot of people talk about is the character roster. Now, we're going to talk about some of the things that I think are more valid than others here, but I think a lot of people look at the character roster and they're going like, I don't feel like there's a character that I could have fun with. And I kind of get that because if you watch the last video, I did say that it took me a very, very long time, a couple of hours at least, to really find a character that really, kind of resonated with me, right? For me to get in there and have some fun and play it. And I think when it takes a couple of hours for a person to kind of get into your game, I think you've already lost. And I went into that game wanting to play it, and I went into that game wanting to enjoy it. So for me, I had kind of that initial push and then that sustained push to keep going. But I think when you have a game that's going to cost $40 and you're, going to ask people of that upfront price, and then it may take them a little bit to kind of get into a character and get playing, I think that's a lot to ask for. Now, in good faith, I can see where people come from when they compare Concord's roster to Overwatch's roster, right? Because one of the things I think Blizzard does really well with their Overwatch roster is everything just goes well together, right? Each character really does quite well when it comes to kind of tying everything together. So for example, let's talk about a few basic ones here. When we talk about Reinhardt, he is that frontline tank character, right? He's big, he's bulky, he's got the armor on, and his ability is that huge shield to protect your teammates, right? It's very basic, and it's something we think about, but they do it quite well, and the gameplay is satisfying as well at the same time, right? So they kind of tick every box there with like Reinhardt. Then you look at a support character like Mercy, right? When we think of a support character, you kind of joke around that, oh, I'm like your guardian angel, I'm protecting you, I'm saving you, I'm reviving you. That's what mercy is, right? You fly around, you kind of boost yourself up, and then you look down at your teammates and you're kind of healing them and giving them a little bit of a damage boost. And that's the guardian angel there. And that just fits, right? It makes sense in your head. Then we look at, on a DPS side, we look at like Genji, right? So we look at like the ninja with the sword, right? Up close, personal, get into the face of the enemy, and that fits as well. So, and you can expand that to a lot of the rest of the roster there, but truthfully, it just fits every single time, it seems like, and it gives you an identity to that character, and you're drawn towards the identity of that character. When we look at Concord's roster, it can be really hard at first glance to find the identity of these characters and then really attach yourself to that identity. Now, they do it with some of them. For example, Kips, I think, is one of the best ones to kind of represent this idea, right? Kips is that secret agent, very sly kind of character that wears the suit, has the silenced weapon, and from that kind of aesthetic, you're going up close and personal with the enemy. Then, for example, you're looking at One Off, right? One Off is the big yellow robot, which I would almost say he should probably be like the mascot of the game rather than like Star Child, which I seem like Star Child is like they've pushed to the front almost. But One Off is like the big robot with the trash dispenser weapon, right? And when you think of some robots in the future, you think of them as like trash dispensers or trash pickups or whatever it is, right? We see that across different media. But I think using him, it fits thematically, right? You have this big bulky robot and he's throwing trash at you and he's picking up trash and he's doing all sorts of different stuff. And I feel like that kind of works there as well. Then we look at a character like Lark. Now, Lark is a mushroom spore character and the look is there. While I would argue that the look is kind of like an uncanny valley kind of alien look, but it fits, right? But I think the problem with that is that a lot of the other characters, you can almost kind of move them around and you can kind of, take weapon off of one, move it to the other. And it really doesn't seem like it would change too much about them. Now, that isn't going to be the case with all of them, for example, like Amari and Roka, but it does feel like with certain characters, you can just swap their weapons around and really nothing would change. And I think that's the biggest issue is that character identity is lost with a lot of the roster. And when you don't identify with a character, it really can be hard then to kind of jump into different characters and really get a feel for them. And I think that's a big thing, right? I think visually you have to have a character that appeals to you, but then I think the abilities, the weapons, the guns all have to go in together with kind of that look, and it kind of ties the whole character together. And I think Concord definitely loses that with some of the roster, while I think they do succeed with other parts of the roster. But I think when you make the comparison with, an Overwatch 2 or a Marvel Rivals, where this stuff is very apparent right off the rip, I think that's part of the issue with kind of onboarding new players. Now, the question is, can they fix that? And the answer is yeah, right? When they release more characters, they have to be able to kind of, identify this problem and really solve it with the design, right? Now, for anyone who follows my channel is in the game design, I might be talking out of my ass here. It's very possible. But I'm trying to kind of parse through community sentiment right now in good faith and kind of look at what we're getting with Concord versus the other games out there. And this is like the only thing that I can think of is that it doesn't really feel like character identity is at the all-time high with this game. And I think that might be the issue here. So truthfully, I do see where things are going wrong with this game. One thing that I will give them credit for is that they are putting these shorts out on YouTube, these very anime looking shorts that the animation is very beautiful, by the way. And they are trying to give this background and this personality, these characters. So even if you're losing kind of the identity when it comes to like the weapons and abilities and the looks, you are kind of identifying with these characters, what they are, their motivations, and kind of using that as your cornerstone into being like, hey, I like this character in this kind of short or this cutscene. Let's go play them. Will that be enough? And I think that is the the millions of dollars of questions here. And I just don't know at this point. Time will tell as we count down the clock here, 10 days to go. But if I'm Firewalk Studios and I'm PlayStation, I might be a little nervous here of how this is going to, take shape. With that being said, though, I'm still going to play the game. I'm still going to buy it because life's too short. So I'm going to spend the money, have some fun for while I can. And if the game, kind of burns up in 6 months or a year, I mean, it is what it is. But I'm going to give it a shot, see how it plays out. And, we're going to talk about it as it kind of, takes shape over the next, couple weeks, couple months, next year. We'll see. But with that being said, if you guys want more Concord news, opinions, analysis, reviews, however it all kind of, comes out, let me know by subscribing to the channel, liking the video, leave a nice little comment. Otherwise, as always, guys, make sure you enjoy the rest of the day and the night. You guys take care and take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.